I'm here today with Gregg Shapiro, and thank you, Greg, very much for making yourself available for this interview and for talking with me about your newest book, Fear of Muses.
Thank you for
This
having me.
is,
I'm very happy.
you're welcome. This is your third book with Souvenir Spoon Press and your eighth book overall, is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Great. And you have written short stories and poetry and essays. You just have a wide variety of things that you write. Is poetry your core type of writing that you do?
I think that's where it all began, honestly, was with that. And then it expanded into other things. Started writing short fiction, and then became my career as an entertainment journalist. So that was a surprise career change, but one that I love.
Great, thank you. Throughout the interview, I'd like to ask you if you would to read some of the poems from Fear of Muses. And I would like to start, if you would, with the title poem, Fear of Muses, and then we can talk a little bit about it after you've read it.
Of course, I'd be happy to. Fear of Muses. Never ever tell anyone that you hate Walt Whitman. They will look at you askance. They will never ask you to dance. Even if you don't say a word, you know they are dying to ask you why you left leaves of grass on the subway platform near the edge, so any clumsy, distracted, unsuspecting passenger boarding or exiting could kick it onto the third rail where it will sizzle like the sunny and ample lands in Song of the Redwood Tree. Best not to mention in polite conversation how you wish that Lavinia Norcross Dickinson would have minded her own damn business, left her sister Emily's poems stashed in the drawer where she found them. If they listen closely, they may hear you humming to yourself, a melody that possibly resembles Amy Mann's Stranger into Starman, about Anne Sexton's Star Rats, or Cemetery Gates by the Smiths.
Thank you. Thank you. The fear part of the title of that poem seems to refer to the Whitman, Dickinson, Western canon types of poets, and they're clearly not your muses, but I do have to say that your employment of lists in your poems and some other features of your longer poems do remind me of Whitman. So,
okay, I'll take that. Why not?
That is a compliment, by the way.
Yeah.
But the rest of the poems in the book refer to other poets, to different friends and family members who seem to have inspired you to put pen to paper. Are they really your true muses?
I have a lot of muses. I really do. I find inspiration in a lot of places, and actually the funny thing is that yes, all of these people are muses, but my muses are really often outside of poetry. They're like in this poem, there's references to Amy Mann and the Smiths, and so a lot of my muses are musical, even though I cannot read music, play an instrument, or carry a tune in a suitcase. Just can't. So yes, music is very important in my life. So that's definitely a source.
Wonderful. Thank you. Your book begins and ends with poems about your father. And in one poem, you're becoming your father. In the other, you are blessing and erasing your father. I wondered if you would read us the first poem, Becoming My Father, and then later on, I'll ask you to read the final poem.
Sure. Becoming my father. I never wanted to be him, he of the yolk-soaked toast, the oily sardines and rare steaks, the insatiable sweet tooth, the bottomless hunger and thirst, noisy chewer, Buddha profile, thick gold chain and religious medallion, sports fanatic, generous cologne spritzer, flea market barker and change maker, loud laugher, cigar smoking, cigarette sneaking, nicotine dependent, the comb over, the short lit fuse, the fist, the caress, coin collector, coupon clipper, foul-mouthed wild child, self-destructive flirt, furious, fumbling, but fulfilled father figure. I tried to starve myself. I became an atheist. I shaved my head. I don't run, I read. Ex-smoker, homosexual and intentionally childless, public poet, protester and activist, pride parade float rider, pink triangled, rainbow attired, itinerant collector of addresses in different cities and states, survivor and disappointment. These thoughts race through my mind every May as the anniversary of his death approaches. I glide past the selection of yahrzeit candles on the supermarket shelf, convinced that words in a poem are a better source of illumination, memorialization, apology. Only I know about the secret and constantly revised list of our shared qualities and quirks, held close to my chest like a good hand of cards. Lovers of dogs, watch and ring wearers, penny slots players, die-hard Democrats, movie fanatics, monogamists, road trippers, shoe whores, graceful dancers, news junkies, joke crackers, back scratchers, chin-bearded whistlers, gearheads, chicken scratched in code and disappearing ink on edible paper, stuck to the roof of my mouth, hidden securely under my tongue like a pill, ready to be swallowed or denied if detected or unearthed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The secret list of shared qualities and quirks in that poem's really delightful. It's really great. Also, I like the list in the first stanza that characterizes your father, and it works much better than a description would have worked, I think. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, he was he was actually a lot more things than those, but those are things that were so clear in my head at the time I was writing it.
there were a couple of lines in that poem that seem to indicate that poetry can become a sort of alternative to religion. Is that something that you've considered?
Yes, I am a longtime atheist, and art is really my religion. Music, poetry, film, books, literature, the visual arts. That's where those are my churches. That's where I find hope and faith in the world.
And that's where your muses come from, as well as the people in your life. Yeah. You have more than 3 elegies, I think, in your book. I know 3, but maybe more in your book. And it seems that remembering people who have been important to you in the past is a key feature in this book. And can you talk a little bit about writing elegy and how you go about it?
Sure. It's I think part of this comes from being a gay man of a certain age. It's just, yeah, it's really hard to believe. But yes, I think that's a big part of this, is that being, having lived through many terrible crises. And so I think that is, it's an important thing. I think it's to not forget those that have gone, and to celebrate them, to memorialize them in any way possible.
I agree. Yeah. Quite a few of the poems, talk about someone who has passed, but they also, other poems refer to other poets like Stevie Smith and Plath and Joe Brainerd and others. So this seems to go back again to the idea of muses, but these poets are not ones to fear. Instead, they inspire you. Who are you reading right now, and who do you plan to read in the near future that might be an inspiration for new poems?
Well, so this is a confession that I often am very uncomfortable making, and that is I mostly read prose. I mostly read Novels and short stories are my first choice. I read a lot of memoirs. So, and I can still find inspiration in those places. Like currently, I'm very, very excited. I'm reading an advanced copy of the new novel by Rebecca Mackay, Makkai. This is her, I think, fourth or fifth book. I've had the pleasure of interviewing her about two of her previous books. And she's amazing in a lot of ways in that she is a straight woman who writes some of the best and most unforgettable queer characters you will ever encounter. Her previous book was called The Great Believers, won all sorts of awards and honors, and it was a book about, mostly it was about the arrival of AIDS in Chicago in the mid to late 80s. And I get very choked up when I think about the book. But in her new book, which I believe it's called I Have Something to Ask You, right from the very beginning, there's this really wonderful lesbian couple character in the book. And it's just really very natural. And she writes about it like it's not a big deal because it's not a big deal. And so, yeah, so I love reading that stuff. And I also just got a copy of the new memoir by Kid Congo Powers, who was a musician, queer musician. He was in a band called The Cramps, very much a part of the cool punk scene. I interviewed him a couple of years ago about his album, so I'm looking forward to reading that as well. Oh, and also the other one, Adele Bertay, a lesbian singer-songwriter, was in a few different bands. She's in the movie, the classic lesbian movie Born in Flames by Lizzie Borden. She's one of the activists in the movies and so she's got this great memoir coming out early next year.
Wonderful. Okay. So prose is really something that feeds you and helps you write. And maybe some people say they don't like to read much poetry because they're afraid it'll influence them, but that's not your thought at all. It's more that
no, not at all. No, and I mean it's just going to sound so like, some of my best favorite poets are some of my best friends. Denise Duhamel, of course, who I went to college with back in the way back. I love your work. I've had you come to read at a series that I do here in South Florida. I love Dan Vera's work, Kim Roberts, Julie Marie Wade. So yeah, it's a weird thing where I've sort of been lucky enough to either have these poets in my life earlier as friends, and then we, went through poetry together, or got to know them as poets and then became friends with them.
We are very lucky to be in a part of the country where we have so many great poets in a short distance from us.
And Dustin Brookshire too. I don't want to forget Dustin Brookshire too.
Yeah, great. I was going to ask you about the poem Gas Station Flowers. That's a collaboration with Denise Duhamel, and collaboration is very present in our poetry world today, and it's really a popular thing to do. Can you talk about how that worked for you in the poem, and tell us if you've done other collaborations or plan to do others?
I would like to do more. I'm one of those people who doesn't play well with others, so that makes might be a kind of a challenge for collaboration. But Denise has been doing collaboration for years with Maureen Seaton and Julie Marie Wade and other people, and so I wanted to give it a shot. It's really as simple as that we were talking, and I forget how the subject came up, and I felt really safe to collaborate with Denise, and I'm happy with the way it turned out. It was also published in Gargoyle magazine, so I know it's a good poem. And so I would be willing to do more. I just need to find the right collaborator, I think.
Thank you. I know that one of your poems in this book, well, they've got a couple of long poems, but the one I'm thinking of is I Don't Remember, Can't Forget. It's a long poem that travels across many years, and it's ironic in its claim not to remember what is so clearly remembered. I'd love to hear you read it if you don't mind reading such a long one.
Sure,
It
not,
would
not
be
at
great.
all. Not at all. I back up for a second. I'd like to say that the reason it was written was because Raymond Luzak at Squares and Rebels Press was doing an anthology for Whitman's. It's a birthday anthology for Whitman, and not necessarily my favorite, but he said he was looking for other for poems inspired by other queer writers, so he would take anything, and so this poem was in that anthology called Love Jets, and I actually like Joe Brainerd's work a lot, so this is an homage to him. So don't remember, can't forget, after Joe Brainerd, 1942 to 1994. I don't remember the scalpel or the ether. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the silly putty or the orange chair cushion. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the missing red stuffed animal monkey with the hard rubber face. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the jokes about having blonde hair and the milkman. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the picnic table, the sudden bruising grab, the shame. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the handsome soldier who made my aunt cry. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember sleepwalking, peeing in a bowl of my parents' popcorn. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the yellow, cracking, clear plastic covering the white sofa. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember when the younger brother began to overpower the older one. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember shoplifting Lick-a-Maid, watermelon, Jolly Ranchers, and Butterfinger. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the first boy to call me faggot. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the first time Billy kissed me. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember forgetting the lines of dialogue, the words to the song in the play. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember gazing at the Barbra Streisand album cover, making my mouth in the same shape. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember kissing Paul McCartney and John Lennon's pictures on Meet the Beatles. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember playing with my sister's Barbie dolls, whether she was there or not. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember Poco pulling too hard on her leash, the icy sidewalk, the broken finger. I can't forget the scar. Don't remember the traveling salesman's heavy sample case, the long road trips. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember my mother being unable to leave the house for days at a time. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember having sex with Aaron in my brother's lower bunk. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the Dusties. I don't remember crying on the Amtrak train at Union Station before leaving for Boston. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the electric sensation of having my first poem published in a magazine. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the lovers' quarrels and the makeup sex with John on Prince Street. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember the first time I read about the rare cancer seen in 41 homosexuals. I can't forget the scar. I don't remember saying goodbye to Rolando in the AIDS ward at St. Joseph's Hospital. I can't forget the scar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
The scar in that poem seems to be particularly interesting because it's ever present. It's caused by everything. And whether the thing that happens is good or bad or indifferent, it leaves a scar. And so you're making some kind of comment there about how we are as humans and how everything affects us and molds us.
Right, and I mean, scars are reminders of something. They're reminders both good and bad. And I was born with a cyst under my right arm, and I had surgery when I was 16 months old, and I had 98 stitches. So I grew up with a scar on my body. And sometimes it was a little embarrassing. It was kind of a source of shame, and other times it was kind of a source of fascination. So, so that I think that's where the scar motif comes from. That it's something that has. It's one of the things, other than maybe my mother, who's been with me like the longest throughout my life.
I didn't find your mother any place in the book, but maybe I missed it. I noticed she appeared a lot in How to Whistle, which in
Oh,
those stories, which was really
yes.
fun.
Yeah, she's actually in my first book, Protection, from 2008. There's a poem called "My Mother Says the F Word."
Oh, okay.
So yes, she appears. She's not in this one a lot, but she has appeared in many other poems and short stories. Yes.
That's great. Um, I really can't have you go without reading the Dolly poem, so we might as well do that if you would. The Dolly poem is on page 42, and it's a really fun poem. Had I not known anything about the Dolly project, I still would have loved this poem because it's
Well, thank you. Yes. This is Disco Dolly. Of course, it's bright pink vinyl. That's not shocking. What other color could it possibly be? The purple label with her signature and the irresistible invitation to dance with Dolly at your own private Studio 54. The RCA logo makes me dizzy, delirious as it spins on the turntable, and I spin around dancing to the song as I have for more than 40 years. I have blazed many miles, left burn marks on clothing and furniture in cities, smoky trails like Dolly's Great Smoky Mountains near Pigeon Forge, where we made a pilgrimage to pay homage to her. Sure, we were disappointed. There was no D-Cups ride. But how many people can say they got stuck on a malfunctioning log flume at Dollywood? The first of two such events in one summer. Baby, I'm burning, always playing in my head like a broken record. But that 12-inch single never broke. Carefully packed and transported, it transported me everywhere I lived, in every romantic relationship. A hymn to him and him and him, heating up the coldest winters, the sweatiest summers in Boston and Washington, D.C., and Chicago and Fort Lauderdale, surviving the disco demolition and the AIDS crisis, drowning out the Bible-beating protesters that surprised me, Denise, Julie, and Angie outside the BB&T Center before the concert. Once inside, we felt safe, wrapped in Dolly's grace, her voice more powerful than prayer, extinguishing the flames of hatred.
Thank you. That's great. I really like that. Dolly seems to be a very important source of inspiration to many people right now, and really a fun topic. Yes,
And deservedly so. I mean, between, her involvement in the Moderna vaccine, and now there's this imagination library that she does, and yes, she truly is. She's one of a kind.
I have another poem that goes more toward the serious outside in, that seems to be about our changes in our bodies and our changes in our lives as we get older, and it starts out with Kate Bush, so characteristic of your poems to include musicians. And I'm wondering if you would read that one for us.
Sure. Outside in. Kate Bush knew what she was talking about when she sang, "Outside gets inside through her skin." Just ask the mirror, while your body, not your friend, never your friend, begins its systematic betrayal. First, the eyebrows, formerly arched without plucking or maintenance, now wiry and erratic, capable of injuring innocent victims during unwelcome embraces, potential stunning weapons. flesh stretched beyond elasticity, uncooperative and mutinous, sets about its shaming mission. People laugh good-naturedly when you tell them you undress in the dark, but you are serious as a lesion. But really, what does it matter if you can't see a reflection anyway? Fuzzy, cloudy, smeared, muted, lightless, and focusless. If you were a camera, you'd be stored in the back of the bottom drawer of a questionable, rusty, and creaky file cabinet, along with the dead motor Walkman, the leaky souvenir mug, bent wire hangers, Dusty's ashes, unsent RSVP cards in corresponding stamped envelopes, an ancient wooden mousetrap, stained overalls, and the slinky that wouldn't. Fill a dollar store toolbox with safety pins and aspirin, pliers and gauze, brightly colored electrical tape and earplugs, a glass bottle of India ink, and the president's hairpiece, tailor's chalk and expired condoms. Pour yourself a steaming cup of strong, hot herbal tea with a side of sympathy. If you recall, George Michael told us he preferred it outside.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
The list again is employed in this poem as a way of expressing something, and your lists are all so carefully crafted, and they tell the reader something. They're not just there to be lists of images. They actually function quite beautifully in your poems.
Thank
So
you.
I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Is there any other, I'm going to ask you to read the last poem in the book before we go, but is there any other poem that you haven't been asked to read by people that you would like to read to our audience?
I'm trying to think. I actually like the poem, the vampire poem. Can I read that one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just think it has like this, it feels really fun to read, and it's a bit of a list, but it's also very much of a time. And
Yeah.
so this is, oh, this was a long time ago when I was a vampire for Suki. And it's actually, the idea is that it's him speaking in the poem. Oh, this was a long time ago when I was a vampire. There's the picture of the two of us, me and Linda, posed and paused mid-quip, our younger skin paler than the paper on which the photo was printed. We looked more than a little bemused and astounded. Wasted. Was it the hour? Were the drugs wearing off? Perhaps it was the flash's brightening effect, betraying our modesty, the false flattery of recognition. Who? Us? Really? We wore a similarly staggered expression when we first saw the photo, wrongly convinced that the photographer's lens would never be able to capture our illustrious visages, evasive and precious as they were, in or out of focus. You can also read disappointment on our features, the same startled manifestation as when we glided past gilded mirrors, certain that we had no reflection. Who could that be then, with my waxed and curled mustache, forelock, wide eyes and saucer pupils, trademark nose ring, wooden rosary bead necklace, vintage vest, and only one chin? When Linda said we were vampires, no one believed it as much as we did. But it takes more than donning pitch black clothes and hanging a vial of blood on a heavy silver chain around the neck. So she sharpened her sturdy nails into claws, routinely avoided sunlight, coaled her eyelids, darkened her lips, overdyed her straight hair a gloomy shade of ink, thinned her frame, and learned to stare through anyone who dared cross our path. We only singed a little around the edges when crawling through the grimy, potholed alleys behind smoke-choked bars en route to the nearest subway station, elevated train platform, or taxi stand, as sunrise threatened to erase us and the night, our ears ringing with Gothic lyrics and music. Sleep, the next murky act in the play we were writing, even as we performed it for anyone willing to be a captive audience member, to applaud at precisely the right moment.
Wonderful poem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
A lot of your work is, how do I want to say it, theatrical, in the sense that there's a sense of theater in the people in the poems, and then there's a very visual aspect for the reader, because you can just see all of this occurring and hear the conversations. So beautiful.
Well, good. That's my hope, is that I'm able to,
Yes,
to present it in that way, for sure.
definitely. So it's been wonderful to have you here today and to talk
Thanks,
about all of
Judy.
your work. I think a great poem to end with would be the final poem in your book, Daddy-O. And would you please read that for us?
Absolutely. Thank you again to you and Michael at SoFloPoJo and Lenny and the whole gang. And I really appreciate this. Thank you. And this is Daddy-O, with apologies to Sylvia Plath. I cannot sleep. I cannot sleep. I cannot rest anymore, black sheep. Daddy-O, you outlived your father by 7 years. Did you secretly tally the weeks, minutes, the months, hours, scratching off time like numbers on a lottery ticket? The simple elements of the folklore of his death: a tall glass of 2 cents plain, a Chicago kitchen, a crumpled heart. You inherited that same cursed muscle, torturing it, the reckless diet of fatty foods, tobacco, and too much responsibility, setting aside bongos, 16-inch softball, and unopened dreams for unfulfilling careers in someone else's definition of you: stock clerk, deli counter meat slicer, candy delivery man, flea market hawker, traveling salesman, champion Little League coach, father. The year I turned the age you died, I patiently waited to stop breathing. Embracing darkness, practicing motionlessness, lowering body temperature, balancing delight and disappointment with each new day and every heartbeat. That doesn't mean I don't expend a ridiculous amount of energy looking over my resigned shoulder, the skin and my hands smoothed by the rub of worry. I blame you, I bless you, I kiss you, I curse you. Daddy-O, I have erased you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Judy. I'm very grateful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.